While Americans across the country paused to honor President's Day, reflecting on the legacy of leadership and service that has defined the office, former President Donald Trump spent the day engaging in activities that highlighted his self-absorption and disregard for national crises. Rather than addressing the pressing issues facing the country, Trump spent his time golfing, posting self-aggrandizing messages online, and hanging his infamous mugshot in the Oval Office. Meanwhile, catastrophic storms devastated Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia, leaving destruction and tragedy in their wake. At least 12 people lost their lives in Kentucky alone, according to Governor Andy Beshear. But did Trump offer words of comfort? Did he take any action?
No.
His silence was deafening. This stark contrast between leadership and neglect begs the question, why is Trump more focused on promoting himself than leading the nation? What does it say about his priorities when the American people are suffering while he indulges in leisure and self-worship? The answer lies in his actions, his policies, and his history of siding with the wealthy elite over the working class. Let's take a deep dive into Trump's President's Day fiasco and what it reveals about his dangerous trajectory. Trump's self-indulgent President's Day, golf and social media rants. Instead of using President's Day as an opportunity to unify the country and address national concerns, Trump indulged in his favorite pastimes, golf and self-promotion. He spent the majority of the day at his golf resort, completely detached from the real struggles of Americans. While Americans in multiple states were dealing with the aftermath of severe storms, Trump was posting on his social media platform, Truth Social, sharing his mugshot with threatening messages and promoting his own image as a martyr. Shockingly, he even had his mugshot displayed in the Oval Office, treating it as some kind of victory rather than a testament to his legal troubles. Trump's fixation on his own legal problems and personal brand has consistently taken precedence over governing or responding to crises. This behavior is nothing new. Whether it was the COVID-19 pandemic, the January 6th insurrection, or the multiple natural disasters that occurred during his presidency, Trump has shown a disturbing pattern of prioritizing himself over the well-being of the American people. Ignoring the suffering of Americans, the Kentucky storm disaster. While Trump was busy golfing and self-promoting, devastating storms ravaged Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear reported that at least 12 people lost their lives and many more were injured or displaced. Entire communities were left in ruins. Where was Trump's response? Nowhere to be found. Past presidents have set a precedent for responding to natural disasters with empathy and action. When Hurricane Sandy hit New Jersey in 2012, President Obama was on the ground, working with Republican Governor Chris Christie to ensure aid was delivered. When Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans in 2005, President George W. Bush's slow response was widely criticized, but at least there was an acknowledgement of the disaster. Trump, however, has taken it a step further, completely ignoring the suffering of American citizens. Trump's negligence extends beyond words. It is also reflected in his policies. His administration made significant cuts to disaster relief programs and climate change initiatives, ensuring that communities are even less prepared for extreme weather events. The Republican Party under Trump has also opposed efforts to invest in infrastructure that could prevent or mitigate storm damage, leaving Americans increasingly vulnerable. Trump's economic betrayal, broken promises, and tax cuts for the rich. During his 2024 campaign, Trump made lofty promises to the American people. He claimed he would lower prices on day one, bring peace to Ukraine in 24 hours, and make life better for working Americans. But as his presidency progresses, it's clear that he has failed to deliver on these promises. Instead of tackling economic hardships, Trump and the GOP have prioritized massive tax cuts for billionaires. His latest budget proposal includes a staggering $4.5 trillion tax cut for the ultra-rich, while slashing essential programs for working-class Americans. Medicaid is set to be cut by $880 billion, threatening health care access for millions. Agriculture and farming programs face $250 billion in cuts, and education funding is being slashed by $350 billion. These policies are a direct attack on the most vulnerable Americans, proving that Trump's loyalty lies with the wealthy elite, not the everyday worker struggling to make ends meet. Trump's foreign policy blunders, empty promises on Ukraine, and secret deals with Russia. One of Trump's boldest claims during the campaign was that he would end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. He insisted that his close relationships with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin would allow him to negotiate peace immediately. However, not only has he failed to deliver on this promise, but his administration is now actively undermining Ukraine by engaging in secret negotiations with Russia while cutting out Europe and Ukraine from the discussions. Trump's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, recently met with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Saudi Arabia, bypassing Ukrainian officials entirely. This raises serious concerns about Trump's true intentions and his willingness to abandon Ukraine in favor of appeasing Putin. His admiration for authoritarian leaders has always been troubling, and his actions now suggest that he is more interested in strengthening ties with Russia than supporting democracy. Trump's war on public safety, mass layoffs, and aviation disasters. Another alarming aspect of Trump's presidency is his reckless approach to public safety. Recently, his administration laid off nearly 300 employees from the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, just weeks after a mid-air collision in Washington, D.C., killed 67 people. The aviation industry has seen an unusual spike in lethal crashes, and morale within the FAA is reportedly at an all-time low. Trump's mass layoffs extend beyond aviation. He has targeted the CDC's Epidemic Intelligence Service, which is responsible for detecting and preventing pandemics. Firing these public health experts is not just reckless. It puts millions of Americans at risk of future health crises. His war on public institutions is a calculated effort to weaken essential services while funneling resources toward the wealthy elite. Trump's President's Day activities serve as a microcosm of his entire presidency: self-obsession, neglect of national crises, and a blatant disregard for the well-being of the American people. While Americans faced devastating storms, economic hardship, and threats to public safety, Trump focused on golf, self-promotion, and cutting deals that benefit the wealthy and powerful. His actions make it clear that he is unfit to lead. His priorities are not with the American people, but with himself and his elite allies. The contrast between true leadership and Trump's negligence could not be starker. If Americans want a government that works for them, they must recognize the reality of Trump's presidency, a fiasco that prioritizes self-interest over national well-being. As we move forward, it is essential to hold Trump accountable for his failures and ensure that leadership is returned to those who truly care about the American people. The stakes are too high to allow another 4 years of incompetence, corruption, and betrayal.